Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun. Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence. We go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything, and you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys, today is date July 7th, 2021, and this is How the Frack We Got Here, the midweek edition. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. On How the Frack We Got Here, we do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before I do get started, guys, I do have to sit there and say this is a family-friendly podcast, so we do try to watch our language, even though some words will fly, and then some things that are shown may be of a graphic nature, so viewer discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. Now, let's go ahead and get into it because I'm gonna start doing a section of just crazy white people. Because let's be honest, Roland Martin already has that with crazy white people. Because and of course my buddy Vaughn, Big VZA Dot, has his RAF in which he shows crazy white people doing random stuff. But I do want to start with this story because this story has a lesson, and the lesson is and you've heard this so many times. Wherever you are, don't start none, won't be none.
Outside, pull up on me. The light was on. I'm about to sit on this damn truck.
Now, that was reported by Now This, and actually has been seen across many, many news cycles. And I have always sat there and said this. I've said this many times on my podcast, and it's been echoed by many other podcasts and many other shows. To all white people who think they can talk like nothing's going to happen to them, like the Trump era is still going on, I'm going to be very honest with you. That man was lucky. Number one, because they didn't show the video. They didn't show the video because it was kind of cut off. Police did come and actually escort him out, and he got everything thrown at him. Water, food, bottles got thrown at him. And I'm going to be honest with you, as rightly he should. Because here's the thing in the video. It shows him harassing a black neighbor. And he stepped up. Now, let me tell you something. When you step up to somebody, like you about to do something, you about to get knocked out. I'm going to be honest. You about to get knocked out. And the restraint that dude had, and then it doesn't say on the video that he does give his address. He gives his address and says, bring whoever you want to bring. And they shared it. And again, just like the internet does all the time, it'll make you famous. And what happened? All them folks showed up at old boy's door. And what did he do? He stayed in the house. Again, it's amazing when people sit there and go, man, pull up on me. What you gonna do? Don't. I said, you cannot be a white person, say the N-word, all those racial slurs, give your address like you Billy Badass, and say, yeah, bring whoever you want to bring. Don't be mad. I told people all the time, just like you want to say the N-word, when you want to say the N-word and you want to do all this and you want to do all that, understand there's a toll. And trust me, the bill comes due. And I wasn't mad about it. All them black folks said, pull up. And they said, we outside, bruh. Come on. We outside. And you know how quickly he stayed inside, but I guarantee he probably called police. But again, this just goes to show you so many times I've sat there and said, y'all gonna run into the wrong ones. Now, I am not saying that, I'm gonna be honest. You say the N-word to me and you white, you gonna get stomped out, probably. Or worse, because I've sat there and told people, the ones who think nothing will happen to them are the ones least likely to get knocked out, to get their feelings hurt, or worse. Because black folks ain't taking that no more. And they certainly are not going to sit there and allow you to do whatever you want to do because you're empowered by your white privilege. Yes, that's what they feel like. But when they realize their white privilege doesn't cover village protection, they stay where they are. So, but the ending to that story is he was brought up on charges of intimidation, bias, and things of that nature. And I'm going to be honest, I'm expecting if he's got a job, he's likely to be fired from it. Because, let's be honest, no job ever wants someone who is racist working for them, and it's public knowledge. Because that's what happened to old girl who called in the falsified police report in New York on that guy who was literally choking her dog but telling the police that the black guy was threatening her, and thankfully, because he recorded it, found out to be false. She lost her job. Or, the racist person in Kentucky that wouldn't certify same-sex marriages because it's against her religion, even though she's a county clerk. She got fired. Again, if there's one thing the internet is very good at for exposing these racist people, it makes them famous. At the same time, it changes their livelihood. And I say it all the time, you crazy white people, if your livelihood is worth your 15 minutes of fame, just so you think you can be Billy Badass, be my guest. Because that's going to wind up getting your face. It's going to wind up getting your face kicked in. It's also going to wind up getting your feelings hurt. It can also wind up costing your livelihood. And for what? Just so you can sit there and be the police? Makes no sense. What you guys saying? Public knowledge is the key phrase. They don't care if you're racist as long as you keep it to themselves. Well, to a certain extent, Kelly, you're exactly right. Honey, you're right. But we have those emboldened white folks out there. And when you get those emboldened white folks out there, you will just, unfortunately, be stuck with people who just feel like they can do anything they want to do because they think they're protected when they're really not. And I hate to bring it back to Dorito, but Dorito caused all of this. Dorito may have not been the genesis of this white bold privilege. No, If anything, he was the kerosene match to an already small bouldering fire, and just blew it into an inferno. He may have not been the genesis of it, but he was certainly the catalyst of something bigger. But move right along, because again, that was just funny to see a white person sit there and say pull up, and black people did pull up and they got quiet. I did want to talk about this story here. West Virginia GOP governor did quote, "If you're not vaccinated, you are part of the problem." He goes on to sit there and say that if you're out there in West, quote unquote, if you're out there in West Virginia, you're not vaccinated today, what's the downside? If all of us are vaccinated, do you not believe that less people would die? If you are not vaccinated, you're part of the problem, whether part of the solution. Keep in mind, West Virginia has yet to actually reach a stable area of inoculated individuals, much like most other southern states are. I can tell you out the bat, the home state I live in, Tennessee, definitely does not have a high enough people being vaccinated. Mostly almost every conservative state has actually has a lower than a normal amount of people who are vaccinated versus other states that have high vaccination rates. I mean, case in point, Tennessee just gave over 1 million doses to other states, simply put, because folks don't want to get the vaccines. Now, again, I have said this also many times on this podcast about the vaccine. I put on a Facebook post today because I have seen plenty of people turn around and say, put up the post of when someone tells us they got the vaccine, it's like, but it's not FDA approved, it's untested, it's this, it's that. And I'm like, what's your alternative? I ask this question every time I run into somebody that sits there and says, don't get the vaccine. Okay, what's the alternative? What's your alternative? Because it's amazing when I sit there and point that out, how quiet. I have yet to run into one person that can give me a rebuttal to that question. I have yet. Because every time I go, they used to say herd immunity until they realized herd immunity is not what they thought it was. They used to say all the time, well, I just think that if it's untested by the FDA, they shouldn't be given out to everybody. And I thought to myself, polio was a big event in U.S. history, right? Imagine if the same people who have this mindset about the coronavirus had the same mindset about polio. Would we actually have survived it, or would a lot of us been wiped out? I'm just saying. But the point I'm making about this, guys, is stop. And I'm going to say this before I move on to the next story, because again, I'm not mad about what the West Virginia governor said, because you are part of the problem. You're slowing down progress in order for us to move forward, because there's already not one, but now a Delta variant of the coronavirus out there. So yes, you are halting progress of getting everybody inoculated to the point to where we can start making a dent with this pandemic. Because again, people sit there and say, well, I'm not going to get the shot. Okay, well, as you just saw last week with hospital workers who refused to get the shot, you know what happened to them? Lost their jobs, or they got fired. And they try to sit there and say, well, you're forcing us to get the shot. Well, no kidding, genius. You work in a spot where you're going to be around other patients and you don't have the COVID vaccine, which means you can probably still carry it. We can probably still give it to somebody else. You are a bona fide biohazard risk, a risk that a hospital cannot take, because Lord knows they don't want to get sued by a patient, simply put, because one hospital worker didn't want to get the vaccine. Hospitals think of it in losing money versus actually making sure their employees are safe, because that's the way to look at it. It's two-sided. So, what does that mean? That basically means, ladies and gentlemen, there's no other reason out there to get the shot. It's free. It's widely accessible. Everything about the shot is public. Everything that's in the shot is public. If you still have questions, there are plenty of physicians out there, medical personnel and professionals, that you can easily get your questions answered. Like I said before, we are in the golden age of digital information. Almost everything can be found on that very same smartphone that you make TikTok videos with. Again, I asked this question to all those people that sit there and say that you're not going to get the vaccine. What's your alternative? Because I'm going to be honest with you, unless your alternative is death, then I guess you're welcome to it. But again, just like every other American, you have a choice. We just hope you make the right one. Alright, so moving right along, guys, with that story itself, I did want to again bring up critical race theory. Why? Because this next story after this I'm about to play will make so much sense about critical race theory. For all those that don't know, critical race theory is the new curriculum that they want to actually teach to our children to really explain U.S. history. Much more explain the fact of, the institution of racism, systemic racism, and the income issues and wealth gaps between certain ethnic groups. As you can tell, some people, white people, don't want it told.
Thousands of parents all over the U.S. of all races who have been speaking out against CRT, and rightfully so. These are my babies, not yours. If you are embarrassed or ashamed of your skin color, that's your issue, not mine nor my children.
This is a school board meeting in a suburb of Philadelphia, where a small group of very vocal parents are speaking out against critical race theory, or CRT.
We do not want our children to be taught that America is systemically racist.
600,000 people died in the Civil War to end racism and slavery. Don't rewrite factual history or indoctrinate, just present the facts.
In the wake of protests of the murder of George Floyd, Republican politicians have been hyping critical race theory as a threat to the impressionable minds of America's children.
Critical race theory says every white person is a racist. Critical race theory says America is fundamentally racist and irredeemably racist.
In more than 12 states, legislators have proposed bills to ban CRT. We wanted to meet the actual people working with actual kids in actual schools. So we talked to Keziah Ridgway, who teaches high school African American history and discusses CRT in her anthropology class.
Can I just start with a very simple, what is critical race theory?
Yes. Critical race theory is not being taught in schools. It is a theory, it is a lens by which to view history and the way that law and race kind of overlaps and connects in society. Can it influence the way that some teachers teach? Yeah, but that's a good thing, right? Because race and racism is literally the building blocks of this country. So how can you not talk about it?
Critical race theory is an academic framework that says racial inequality is perpetuated by the racism embedded in America's laws, not by individual bigotry. But relentless propaganda from some conservatives has created a panic that white people, and especially white children, are under attack.
Critical race theory is basically teaching people to hate our country.
Schools are embracing this ideology and forcing white students and white teachers to be ashamed of their own skin color.
It's not critical race theory, it's racism.
These are systemic things. Ignoring it perpetuates the problem. By acknowledging it, we can find solutions and we can address the problems and the inequality that exists in our country. And so I think teaching it this way actually does the opposite of what these people say it does.
Are you teaching children to hate America?
No, I'm teaching children to question America. And that's what makes a good patriot.
Don't force on our kids a particular worldview. Taking a white brush and painting this country as structurally racist, it's insane.
Why is it insane though? I mean,
it's a lie.
Last year, Alana Fishbein says she received an email from her kids' school that students would be learning more about the role of race in American society. She thought the materials were racist, so she pulled her kids out of public school. Then she created an advocacy group, No Left Turn in Education, to draw attention to her claims that CRT is poisoning young minds.
This isn't distant history. In the 90s, the crime bill gave much more severe sentencing to crack cocaine versus powder cocaine simply because Black people were perceived as doing crack cocaine and white people.
Ask Joe Biden why he did that.
I think that's a great question. Wait, but this Joe Biden, I think, is a perfect illustration, right? Joe Biden would present himself as a nice guy who would never have a racist bone in his body, yet he participated in creating these laws that have a structural effect of affecting Black people more than white people.
But we don't have them now.
People affected by that law are still alive.
We're talking about something entirely different now. This is my taxpayers' money. I don't want it to go to indoctrinate kids that then are going to hate my kids because of the color of their skin and attack them because of the color of the skin. What happened in the summer, it twisted the minds of all kids. My kids can be attacked by Antifa kids or BLM kids that are not Black. They are white like my kids. But they are believing, they were indoctrinated and they internalized this philosophy.
Were your children beat up by Antifa kids?
I beg your pardon?
Were your children beat up by Antifa kids?
I'm talking, it's gonna happen if we're not gonna stop it. But we are gonna stop it. We are the great majority of this country.
Anti-CRT propaganda is drawing big crowds.
Of course, I'm against critical race theory.
More than 100 people showed up at this diner near Baltimore, where local Republican groups held a panel on school COVID shutdowns and CRT.
What is critical race theory?
Critical race theory is the idea that's taught to our nation's youth that the way that you're born contributes to the amount of success that you can achieve in this country. It basically states that white people are born with everything, and if you're not white, you're born with nothing.
Can you name any critical race theory scholars?
Probably not.
Can you name any critical race theory concepts?
I don't know what the concepts are. I think I summarized critical race theory as a whole pretty well.
To paint the country as a inherently racist country from its founding, I think is dangerous.
The Three-Fifths Compromise is written into the Constitution, in which slaves are counted as 3/5 of a person.
Of course, and that was applied at an earlier time. That is not the case now, obviously.
Well, you just mentioned the founding of the country, so.
Well, yeah, it wasn't perfectly written in the Constitution.
When did you first hear about critical race theory?
Sometime around last year.
Where'd you see it?
On Fox News. The idea that you can succeed based on your race is ludicrous. This is not the 1960s anymore. Just because of your skin color does not mean that you cannot be successful here in America. Point blank, period.
I teach these books for my anthropology class.
Are you teaching white kids to hate themselves for being white?
No.
Are you teaching black kids that there's nothing they can do to improve their situation?
Absolutely
because
not.
There's racism and they can never fight it, so they should give up?
Absolutely not. I'm creating little free thinkers and future politicians and lawyers and teachers and change makers. Our kids are smart. They know what's happening. And I think we do them a disservice by continuing to pretend like critical race theory is the issue when it's really you just don't want kids to learn the truth. Because not only do they become critical thinkers, they also become voters. And that is what's scaring a lot of these people, because they know that as this generation gets older, a lot of these people that are making these laws will be voted out of office.
She ain't wrong. She's not wrong. Literally and figuratively, when I first saw that video, I was like, you know, this is going to be nothing but white people. Nothing but white people. You know, critical race theory is going to teach our kids to hate our skin, hate white people's skin. No. It's going to sit there and make us racist. No. And of course, I love the fact that a college Republican is going to sit there and completely summarize what they believe critical race theory is, which is the same explanation that was given on Fox News. And when she pointed it out to him, she's like, I think I summarized it pretty well. No, you really didn't. The curveball, aside from the woman who's sitting there saying, well, these Antifa kids and BLM kids, I'm like, look, ladies and gentlemen, let me stress this out very heavily. Antifa is an ideology. It's not a group. It's not a movement. If anything, if you're against fascism, if you're against dictatorships and things of that nature, you're Antifa. Those who fought in World War I and World War II would be considered Antifa. It's an ideology, not a terrorist group. And the funny part is she turns around and says, well, Black Lives Matter kids and Antifa kids will beat up my kids. Ma'am, has anyone ever beat up your kids? Well, no. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen, though. Again, fear. The people see this, and I love that the teacher at the end summarized it so well that she wants to create free thinkers. She wants to create those that question, those that want to know, because the whole point of critical race theory is to really look at our nation's history, good and bad. And let's be honest, if you've been in grade school, especially in public school, the watered down social studies, U.S. history they give you is nothing compared to what you learn in college. Because in college, you learn the real stuff. Yes, if white people, and here's the thing, And I point this out to all white people that watch this podcast, because some of them are going to feel this way, some of y'all ain't. But again, if you truly do agree with those in there that sit there and say critical race theory should not be taught, is it because you're afraid of the simple fact of the matter that just maybe your ancestors may be responsible for the 400-year advancement that you had? Or you might be of the fact that, your kids are not going to be able to think the way you do. Because that's the same thing with religion. Why do you think the longest time religion had such a great hold on society? That if you did not think the way they wanted you to think, you were labeled as a radical, you were labeled as an outcast. So, again, with critical race theory, it needs to be, because if you educate someone, they're enlightened, they are aware, which means they should be able to see and perceive. Because George Carlin, one of my favorite comedians, said it best. They don't want critical thinkers, they want button pressers. And trust me, there are a lot more button pressers out there than critical thinkers, and that's sad. Even more sad that you want to know how critical theory relates to us today? Take a look at ESPN for a second.
Has pulled Rachel Nichols from covering the NBA Finals as a sideline reporter starting tonight after fallout from a controversial audio recording released in a New York Times report. In the conversation, which took place last year, Nichols can be heard complaining that ESPN chose Maria Taylor, who's a black female employee, for NBA Finals coverage instead of her. CNN has not independently obtained this recording, and Nichols has not denied its authenticity.
Now, in it, she reportedly says, in part, "I wish Maria Taylor all the success in the world. She covers football, she covers basketball. If you need to give her more things to do because you're feeling pressure about your crappy long-time record on diversity," which, by the way, I know personally from the female side of it, like, go for it. Just find it somewhere else. You're not going to find it from me or taking my thing away. Brian Stelter is CNN's chief media correspondent and anchor of Reliable Sources. So who's going to replace Nichols, and what is ESPN saying about this?
Malika Andrews is going to be the sideline reporter when the NBA Finals start on ABC tonight. So ESPN is kind of sidestepping this, or trying to, by not having Rachel Nichols or Maria Taylor. Instead, it'll be Malika Andrews filling in. She, like Maria, is black. Now, ESPN says, "We believe this was the best decision for all concerned in order to keep the focus on the NBA Finals." So really, again, trying to sidestep this controversy. So Nichols will keep hosting her daytime show, but she won't be in prime time for the time being. Nichols was right that ESPN was facing pressure about diversity last year, and rightly so. Of course, ESPN should be under pressure to make the network look more like America. But I think there's a key paragraph in this New York Times expose that sums it up. Multiple black ESPN employees said they told one another after hearing this leaked conversation that it confirmed their suspicions that outwardly supportive white people talk differently behind closed doors. I think that's at the heart of this controversy.
Everybody talks differently behind closed doors about everything. I mean, not just about racial issues. People talk differently in the privacy of their own hotel room. And I just want to say,
and that's part of the story too.
This was a private phone conversation in her own hotel room. She didn't know that her camera was still on, and I just think that we need to say that.
She called it a spy video. She thought she was having a private call with a friend venting, and she says it was a spy video. But this video then circulated all around ESPN and created this internal controversy for a year that we are just learning about now. And this notion that Nichols was suggesting that one of her colleagues was only getting a job because her colleague is black, that was really at the heart of this controversy. Meantime, Maria Taylor is not commenting. She's not saying anything about this. In fact, Rachel Nichols said she's reached out to Maria to apologize, and Maria has not returned those phone calls or texts.
Rachel Nichols did apologize yesterday, so let's hear what she said.
So the first thing they teach you in journalism school is don't be the story. And I don't plan to break that rule today or distract from a fantastic finals. But I also don't want to let this moment pass without saying how much I respect, how much I value our colleagues here at ESPN, how deeply, deeply sorry I am for disappointing those I hurt, particularly Maria Taylor, and how grateful I am to be part of this outstanding team.
So she has received support from some of her colleagues, but you're saying that no response from Maria Taylor.
Right, no response from Maria Taylor. And there's also a subtext to this about business, about economics. Maria Taylor's in the midst of a contract negotiation. She may leave ESPN in a couple of weeks. So to have this come out now may have benefited her in that contract negotiation. Now, she says there's been experiences, she told ESPN, Maria Taylor, that there was other times at ESPN last year where she experienced racial insensitivity. And, at the same time, you have Rachel Nichols pointing out, she's one of the women at ESPN in an organization dominated by men. She knows what it's like to experience those diversity pains.
Okay, so again, this is the reason why critical race theory should be taught. Because where else does a white woman want to sit there and say, oh yes, I know exactly the diversity issues that this multinational network, multi-billion-dollar network corporation that I work for knows very well that it has racial and diversity issues. But hey, don't take away from me to give it to her. The very same people who are arguing about critical race theory sound exactly like her. And it's kind of funny when you put it, it's disturbing because she thinks she did nothing wrong. Even the apology she gave was PR. It was I don't know who ESPN/Disney hired for the PR spin that they're about to put on this, but you can tell that whole entire speech was all PR. Even Baron Davis, who was in the corner, was just like, "This is some bull." And like you can see a look on his face where he's like, I'm trying not to look annoyed. I'm trying not to look happy about the situation. He's like, dude, just get me off this set with this heifer. Because again, it just goes to show you again why critical race theory is so needed and wanted. Because even in the world of journalism, that even a white woman will sit there and say, you know what, I hope she gets everything she wants, just don't take it from me. Where else would you hear that? Again, Rachel Nichols needs to go ahead and, I almost want to sit there and go, you about to lose your job. I don't know why it went through my head, because the whole time I'm like, wait a minute. She's like, well, it was kind of funny how the lady on CNN tried to defend her. This was a private conversation in her hotel room. Journalism 101. Understand that anything you say can and will be used against you. If there's a camera there, pretend it's a mic. Pretend it's live. If you have a mic in front of you, pretend it's hot. If you don't trust anything, here's a wonderful idea. Don't say anything till you're at home. Don't say anything to anybody. My thing is, it's just like with all this. All this is recorded media. This podcast is recorded media. So anything that I say, I will have to stand on, because if this does, if my podcast does take off one day and I, get picked up or anything of that nature, I'm on a different show, then somebody is going to go back, look at YouTube and go, hey, he had this podcast. And look at all the things that he said on various subjects. I'm going to have to stand on that. I'm not going to walk away from that. I stand on everything I say because I like to say it on this podcast from a point of truth and a point of reference. Rachel Nichols can't say that. You know why? Because the whole idea of it was a private conversation doesn't matter. That's her way of thinking. Her way of thinking is that give her, she should be given opportunities, but just don't take from me. Says a lot, doesn't it? But again, what do I know? I'm just pointing out the fact of the matter of why we need certain education in this country to avoid a Rachel Nichols, or even to avoid a Donald Trump. Which, yes, Dorito is back in the news because, he's banned from almost every social media, and the social media app that he tried to do was immediately taken down by a mixture of spamming and porn. So now he's going after his next thing, which he's used to doing. He's suing the big tech companies.
President Trump is suing Twitter, Facebook, and the parent company of Google, claiming they're censoring him and other conservatives.
There is no better evidence that big tech is out of control than the fact that they banned the sitting president of the United States earlier this year, a ban that continues to this day. Continues. So we get the word out, but it's not a fair situation. Very, very bad for this country. Very bad for the world. If they can do it to me, they can do it to anyone.
The 3 social media sites have banned the former president for the foreseeable future. They say because he used their platforms to spread lies about the 2020 election and stoke violence on January 6th. As of right now, Facebook and Twitter have declined to comment on the former president's announcement. Joining me now, Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent, Jen Palmieri, communications director for the Obama White House and the Clinton 2016 campaign, and Brendan Buck, former advisor to House Speaker Paul Ryan and former press secretary to House Speaker John Boehner. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Peter, let me start with you. Do you think that President Trump actually expects these lawsuits to be successful?
Well, look, first of all, we should remember that Donald Trump is one of the most litigious people we've ever seen in American history. I mean, he's filed suits, threatened suits, withdraws suits, and so forth at the drop of a hat. It's a way of strategy for him. And his view is, and he has told aides and advisors this, is that suits are not just there to win, but they're there to achieve a different purpose, to send a message, to intimidate an opponent, or to create pressure on somebody, that sort of thing. So he doesn't always follow through. Even if he does follow through, he doesn't always take it the full the full length of an actual court process. So, the message you just played, I think, is the message he's trying to get across. If they can do it to me, they'll do it to you. In other words, he's connecting to his base. They're out to get us. And that you should remember that I'm one of you and you're one of me. And so that's the most important message I think he's sending. But there are some really interesting issues here, legitimate issues about what the responsibility of social media companies have in terms of free speech versus, responsibility for the content of speech. They're not subject to the First Amendment in the same way the government is. They're not, a Congress. They're not a government. They are private entities that can set their own rules. But how do they define the rules? How do the rules apply when they are, in fact, the de facto town square for the United States writ large? And I think these are big issues and real issues that, that are still obviously being debated by liberals and conservatives.
I'm sorry, I gotta laugh. Trump, like I said before, keep in mind, Trump tries to sit there and say the then sitting president, dude, you had access to Twitter the entire time you were president. You weren't banned from Twitter until we decided to give you your pink slip out the White House. Even then, you still had access. I mean, Twitter was your main thing because you didn't believe in doing anything else right. Facebook, which again is going to review your decision in 2 years from now. Instagram, yeah, that's a given. And again, he is suing all of these people. He is suing all the big tech giants for, you shadow ban me, so I'm suing you, because that's what Trump does. Trump doesn't know how to do anything but litigate, and he realizes that I don't know what this imaginary mountain of money he still has to bring up all these lawsuits, mind you. But nothing's going to come from this. Exactly as the NBC correspondent said, nothing is really going to come from this, guys, just because the simple fact of the matter is he's basically banned. And yes, Facebook may actually give him his spot back 2 years from now. Even Twitter may rethink the indefinite ban. But let's be honest, these avenues that he did, he spewed lies, he spewed hate, he spewed rhetoric. He spewed everything short of actually doing his job when he was the president. So again, why in the world were they going to take this seriously? Which they won't. It's him getting in front of the press because he loves the press. He loves the crowd. He loves, it's almost like Trump was never told that he's not president. It's almost like, we're just going to put you on definite vacation down there in Florida. Oh, do I got to come back to the White House? Oh, no, you're good. We got it. Just be on vacation. Go down to Mar-a-Lago, have a wonderful time. But you don't have to worry about coming back. You're good. You sure? Yeah, we're good. Just stay there. That's kind of how it feels like. And again, guys, this is one of those things where I just sit there and I shake my head because I keep pointing this out. The midterm elections are just around the corner in 2022. 2024 is not too far off. And unless Donald Trump can avoid prosecution and possibly jail for the next 3 years, you best believe he is going to try to run for office again. We should all be very concerned because the first time he did it, we thought it was a joke. It wasn't a joke 4 years later when he became president and pretty much ran everything to the ground like he runs all his businesses. Shouldn't be surprised by that. Moving right along, I did want to actually get this other story. Like I said, I don't really usually cover a lot of sports, but I think this is kind of interesting that we might be seeing a new leaf turn over in the NCAA just because of a ruling that has led to many athletes being able to finally get compensated for their likeness and image in college sports.
Athletes can use their popularity to make money off the field.
The NCAA made the decision last week to allow student athletes to make sponsorship deals. Now an entire team is actually getting on board with this new rule. The women's basketball team, the University of Central Florida, is the first full squad known to have entered a sponsorship deal, a sign of what exactly is to come. One of those players, Masani Kaba, joining us now, along with Nick Friedman, co-founder of College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving, quite a name there. The company now in a sponsorship deal with the team. Welcome, both guys. Thanks for joining us on this. Masani, I want to start with you on this one and just talk to you about how this decision has really changed your life.
Yeah.
So, coming in, we wasn't sure, with the new NCAA rules and, what the sponsorship and stuff would look like for female athletes. And we were lucky enough that Nick presented this opportunity to us, and he was able to get the full team on board. When Rebecca Ripley brought the opportunity to us, we were all very excited, especially to do our first sponsorship and endorsement as a team. We felt like it would be a great opportunity, and we really appreciate Nick, coming out to us and us being able to actually sign with him.
Yeah, and Nick,
absolutely. Nick, let's talk about the decision to sponsor an entire team. I mean, this is obviously new to the scene here that athletes can do this individually, but you've gone ahead and done this with the whole team. What exactly are you offering them, and why did you decide to extend the offer to all of them?
Yeah, so, we've always been a purpose-driven organization, and we were the first to sign any player. We actually signed De'Aaron King from University of Miami on July 1st at 12:01 in the morning, and then my partner and I were discussing, there's been very little discussion or talk about women's players with all of this happening. As a father of 3 daughters and employer of a lot of women leadership in our organization, we said, we need to shine the spotlight on women and female athletes to give them an opportunity to leverage their platform and their brand just as well. And so I played basketball as well. We're based in Central Florida. UCF was the logical team for us to partner with. They're scrappy. They're gritty, they're overachievers, and that's kind of been our entrepreneurial mindset since starting our business. So it was just a perfect fit for us, and hopefully it paves the way for other female athletes to leverage their name, image, and likeness as well.
Yeah. I got to say, as the female anchor desk goes, I know I can speak for Savannah in saying we are so pumped for you guys to make this decision to sponsor female athletes. It is so cool, and it really sets the stage, sets the model right for the partnerships that we're going to be seeing in the future because of this decision between companies and student athletes. What more, Nick, is to come?
Well, we have 160 franchisees all around the country, so we're talking about getting our franchise owners involved in sponsoring local athletes in their market, both male and female. It's a perfect fit for our brand, but hopefully bigger organizations, bigger brands that have larger corporate sponsorship budgets will take notice and take advantage of this new ruling that the NCAA has allowed and give, again, female athletes an opportunity to take advantage of their platform, of their social media following, of their name, image, and likeness that the school has always benefited from. So hopefully this is just one small step that sheds the spotlight on female athletes all around the country.
And Nick, it's so sweet to hear you reference your daughters when making this decision. Now, Masani, what's the impact that you hope this is going to have on college athletes moving forward? I mean, this is a big deal. What kind of doors does this open for you and your teammates?
I feel like it opens big doors for us, especially, being female athletes, coming into this. When you hear, name, image, and likeness, a lot of times you think of the men's sports. So, football, basketball, those sports that people tend to watch or people tend to, go to games for. So just having this endorsement, opens doors for not just college hunks, but, UCF women's basketball as well. It'll allow us to probably get more fans. It'll allow, female athletes to have a bigger image, a bigger picture. And we're just grateful for the opportunity.
It's so incredible. And it gives you the confidence to move forward, knowing they're behind you. Nick, Masani, good luck. Thanks for joining us this morning, guys.
Okay, so again, for all those that were watching that, guys, that's pretty much the NCAA's ruling that a college athlete can profit off their name and likeness. Keep in mind, the NCAA has always had this rule of we're not going to pay our athletes because they're student athletes. They get their compensation through education and all of these things, when really the life of a student athlete is 90% sports and 10% education. So they can't sit there and say that they get to enjoy the opportunities when you're too busy making money off of them. Keep in mind, the NCAA is a multi-billion-dollar business. Multi-millions going to college universities, coaches, especially if they get to bowl games and national championships. The players themselves, especially going to go play at the, especially from playing from the high school to collegiate level, let's be honest, 20% of those in high school get to play in college. 5% of those from college get to play professionally. So again, that's already high bars. So yes, I would say why not? I've been saying this, that college players should get a little bit of should get a slice of their profits too, because it's their sweat, it's their effort, it's their back these schools and universities are benefiting from. So I have nothing against the fact that the ladies of UCF have already got an endorsement deal for their name and likeness to be used, and they should be paid. Because why? We need to get off this high horse that college basketball or college sports in general is this purest form where everybody plays for the love of the game. No, for a lot of these players, they are playing to make it to the big time, because the big time is where the big checks are, and the endorsement deals are, and things of that nature. So, let's skip the whole purity of the game and all that stuff. In this day and age, one wrong move, one collision, one slip, one step, anything, whatever, a single injury could be a career ender and a life changer for somebody who had their heart set on something and their livelihood set on it and it was taken away from them. That's how major it is. So I have nothing against the fact that college athletes in the NCAA can now profit off their name and likeness. And all I gotta sit there and say is, y'all go get y'all checks because y'all earned it. Moving right along, guys, I did want to talk about the next story. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know I keep bringing her up like she's Beetlejuice, but let's just say she apologized because, again, she can remember that she compared the Holocaust to mask wearing. Well, I don't know who the apology PR people for Marjorie Taylor Greene, but they're definitely gonna get their overtime today. Reason being because this tweet that she put out about Biden when he was talking about he was quote unquote, we need to go community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get people vaccinated. Marjorie Taylor Greene decided to post this, quote, Biden pushing a vaccine that is not FDA approved shows COVID is a political tool used to control people. People have a choice. They don't need your medical brown shirts showing up at their door ordering vaccinations. You can't force people to be a part of the human experiment. Now, you're probably wondering why she said medical brown shirts. Keep in mind, that was actually a part of Adolf Hitler when he was actually looking for Jews during his reign. All I could sit there and say, for the simple fact of the matter is just that, I don't know about you, but what is it with these people and their fascination with Hitler? Because you can tell in almost every reference they try to do. And yet, Marjorie Taylor Greene is still representative because Kevin McCarthy will not get rid of her. She's been pulled from all budget, because she's been pulled from all her budget, commissions, things of that nature. So she's essentially in Congress getting paid to do nothing. The American dream. Again, I will not be surprised if we see another apology from Marjorie Taylor Greene about this. She's about as bad as Tommy Lauren, honestly. But our last story before we get to our feel good segment, guys, I did want to cover Sha'Carri Richardson as new news has came out. And unfortunately, it's sad news that I guess some of us were expecting from the fallout of her decision as far as her failing the drug test. Unfortunately, in this case, she may not be in the Tokyo Olympics.
The U.S. women's track star is not going to Tokyo Olympics. That's official today. U.S. track and field announcing that she will not compete in the 4x100 relay. Richardson, of course, lit the track on fire in the trials. She won the women's 100-meter dash. She then tested positive for the use of marijuana. She was apologetic and suspended by the U.S. Track and Field Association. But there was a possibility for completing in the Olympic relay because that event competition was outside the window of her suspension. But instead today, U.S. Track and Field saying while U.S. Track and Field fully agrees the merit of the World Anti-Doping Agency rules related to THC should be reevaluated, it would be detrimental to the integrity of the U.S. Olympic team trials for track and field if U.S. ATF amended its policies following competition only weeks before the Olympic Games. All U.S. ATF athletes are equally aware of and must adhere to the current anti-doping code, and our credibility as the national governing body would be lost if rules were only enforced under certain circumstances. Joining me now, former NBA player Eitan Thomas, author of We Matter, Athletes and Activism, who has some very strong feelings about this. Eitan, I've been following this story, and I think that the mass opinion I saw is like, this is insane. This woman is obviously an incredible athlete. Marijuana is either legalized or decriminalized in tons of states. You can use it recreationally. These laws are outdated. But to get the final blow today, I just found myself feeling this like visceral rage at the decision. How are you feeling?
I mean, I feel disappointed. You know, it's interesting. You said that you hear a lot of, people saying how ridiculous it is. I kind of hear a lot of the opposite. I hear a lot of people saying, the rules are the rules. She broke the rules. Never mind what happened to her personally. The rules are the rules. And it's interesting because a lot of those same people who are the rules of the rules crowd are the same people who had so much trouble following the health guidelines during a national pandemic to be able to just wear a mask. It's really interesting that happens. But, there's a lack of compassion that is happening right now. And, to understand what she was dealing with. And people say, well, you have to take her personal situation out of it. Well, I don't think you do. She just lost her mother. I mean, you can tell even during the race, she ran up to the crowd and fell into her grandmother's arms. I mean, this type of situation should make you reevaluate if this rule should even be a rule in the first place. And what she did, before her trials, before her race, did in no way, shape, or fashion help her win, run the 10.6, time that she ran. It was not a performance enhancer. It didn't assist her anyway, and it has to be evaluated. But a situation that happens like this, hopefully the Olympic Committee will then start looking at it and start to reevaluate to see if this should even be a rule in the first place.
Yeah, it's a good point. I mean, this line stuck out to me in the track and field statement today was when they called it the current anti-doping code, and it's like, okay, right. Invoking that term, and I understand that there's more banned substances than just substances that are performance enhancing, but when you use that term, it's like she wasn't cheating. She was using a recreational drug that's no more dangerous on the whole than alcohol, probably less dangerous, honestly, she says, cope with the awful, grief of her mother's loss, like just in a completely different category. It just rubbed me the wrong way to read that word in that context.
Oh, definitely. I mean, it doesn't apply to this situation. And when you're looking at the different things that she could have done in this situation, and it really speaks to a bigger topic of being able to view athletes as humans. And the fact is, a lot of times, nobody cares. Nobody cares what you're going through. Nobody cares what you're dealing with. If you're Naomi Osaka and you're having all this depression and anxiety, nobody cares. You're just supposed to talk to the media. That's your job, and that's what you have to do. And that's the part where hopefully this is another situation where people can see that athletes are human. Athletes deal with tragedy and still have to perform at an optimal level. So, that's one of the things that kind of, when I was seeing all of the comments on social media, and a lot of the comments, I got to tell you, they honestly surprised me. A lot of the talking heads and, in the sports world, when they were covering this subject, it really surprised me because, they talked about athletes as if they were robots. They're not supposed to have any type of feeling, and none of your feelings matter. And, hopefully this can allow people to see that there's something wrong with that type of mentality.
I want to just quickly play. Richardson was on the Today Show on Friday where she talked about this. I found it really powerful. Take a listen.
As much as I'm disappointed, I know that when I submit a track, I don't represent myself. I represent a community that has shown me great support, great love. And to y'all, I failed y'all. And so I apologize for the fact that I didn't know how to control my emotions or deal with my emotions. I just say, don't judge me. Because I am human. I'm you. I just happen to run a little faster.
I like that line, I am human. It also strikes me here that more broadly, whether it's U.S. track and field or the IOC or whoever, as the status of marijuana changes in both a social and legal sense, all these leagues and all of these athletic bodies are going to have to update the rules.
Oh, yeah, well, they'll have to. I mean, it's the contradiction of, especially here in the States, where you have opioids being passed out like candy in the NFL for decades and nobody having a problem with it. In the NBA as well, in different professional leagues, but then you'll have something like with proven medicinal purposes with cannabis, and it'll just be frowned upon. But that goes into a much bigger topic, as far as the way that it's criminalizes in society. I mean, so many people right now, for nonviolent crimes in jail for a nickel bag of weed is ridiculous. So it's a reflection of the bigger problem in society.
He's absolutely right. Yes, let's kind of be completely honest about Sha'Carri Richardson. She broke the rules. I mean, there's just no other way around it. The current rule settings and things of that nature, yes, she broke the rules. Yes, she accepts the punishment for it. And yes, it's a 30-day suspension, which does put her out to the Olympics. But she's very young. She has a long Olympic career in front of her. That also being said, I have a question. If I ever get to ask the anti-doping agency and the IOC, if I ever get to ask this question, I'm definitely going to ask it. How is marijuana is a performance-enhancing drug? I really, really, really want to know. Because marijuana, last time I checked, only has 3 side effects. You're hungry, you're happy, and eventually you're going to go to sleep. So that's the only 3 things from marijuana. It is certainly not going to make you run faster. It's certainly not going to make you jump higher. It's certainly not going to enhance your focus. But again, when it comes to marijuana, this is why I say there's not enough progressive movement on this. Now, I don't smoke marijuana. I have plenty of friends that do. I have been a very big advocate of marijuana just because it has so many medical, mechanical, and patented applications. It can. It helps people. It helps people with depression, with bipolar. It helps people who have reactive nerves or sciatica or painful diseases that just rack the body, or pain management. You know, would you rather people go to these pain management clinics where they have to turn around and be given prescriptions like a pill mill? Like the guy was saying, like Mr. Hetan was saying, they'll pass out opioids like it's candy. I've seen it firsthand that doctor offices, which again, some of them are paid more to push prescriptions out there, like fentanyl, like Percocets, like Oxycontin and oxycodone, they are pushed or endorsed to push those on patients. So, and all of those are addicted and they can kill on overdoses, which people have overdosed on those. But again, marijuana just seems to be the most alternative, holistic medicine that could be given. And again, with Sha'Carri Richardson, I understand. You lost your mom. You lost your mom at a very critical point. Nobody has like, the one thing a lot of people will not sit there and say is just that the Olympics is pressure. Excuse me, it is pressure. Mind you, pressure to perform, pressure to excel, pressure to, to have the entire world look at you and tell you and see what you can do. That is a pressure point. That is a triple-decker heart attack waiting to happen. And that's the pressure these athletes are under. So of course, with her losing her mom, I'm like, honey, you don't have to explain to me about what you need to use to cope. Now, again, I know a lot of people go, but those are the rules. Yes, those are the rules. And she's not shirking them. She's not asking for special treatment. She's not asking for anything at the point. She's accepting it, and she's taking her lumps. And yes, she will be back. She will be back in the Olympics again. Trust and believe that. But with that being said, the IOC and the anti-doping agency really will need to look at marijuana and its uses. For the simple fact of the matter is, that rule needs to be thrown out. Especially with the NBA is already looking at relaxing that rule. The NFL is already looking at relaxing that rule. Major League Baseball and Major League Soccer are probably next. NHL, pretty sure that's too far off. I'm pretty sure that's not far off either. The thing about it is, as I said before about marijuana, in order for marijuana to not be such a taboo topic, just like alcohol, just like cigarettes, it just needs to be legalized and needs to be taxed. It's funny how the things that are legalized and taxed stop being problems. I can say the same thing about prostitution, to be really honest with you. If you legalize and tax that wouldn't be a problem. But then again, that's the other side of it. It's the vices. Oh, well, if we start doing marijuana, then we should start doing crack cocaine. Stupid analogy, but it will never happen. No, but I mean, for example, crack cocaine itself, again, I can go into a whole deep well about the fact of how the government introduced that into the black community, and the black community didn't die from it. They've actually became successful because of it. In the same sense of marijuana, They got mad because minorities learned to profit from it. Again, there's nothing wrong with marijuana. There isn't. But again, until we have progressive movement, and a lot of people sitting there saying, well, President should have done something about it. Biden can't do anything about the IOC. The IOC is a committee made up of multinational individuals, and unless they change the rules, which I didn't expect them to for Sha'Carri, but again, those rules need to be changed because, still calling marijuana a performance-enhancing drug is an archaic excuse that needs to be looked at. In the same sense, like in our country, we need to start looking at marijuana, because the moment marijuana is legal, federally legal, because it needs to be federally legal, federally legal. Once that happens, then we need to look back at everybody who's had a marijuana conviction, and that record needs to be expunged, and those people should be released. Because, like the guy was saying, like Mr. 18 was saying in the previous clip, there are plenty of people sitting in jail right now over a dime bag, or a gram, or a pound. A pound of marijuana, you're in jail. And yes, I know, because the laws, there are still, because even though there are still there are some states that smoking marijuana is legal, it needs to be all 50. We need to have federal legalization. If there's one thing that you can holler up to Capitol Hill and to Schumer and Pelosi and to Biden and Kamala Harris's ears, I guarantee, and I'll be honest with you, I'll even throw it to Republicans, because Republicans could probably win a landslide with this. If the first Republican or first Democrat that ever sit there and says, one of my campaign promises is to legalize weed, if they said that, landslide. I kid you not. If one Republican candidate or one Democratic candidate, whoever it may be, if they turn around and sit there and said, my first thing as president is to make weed legal, you know how many voters will come out the woodworks for that mess? Whether you're Democrat or Republican. If you sit there and say you're going to do this and that's your campaign promise, there's your support right there. But again, like I said, they would also admit that the war on drugs is BS, but that's a whole nother story. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on to our feel-good segment, guys, because like I usually do on How the Frack We Got Here, we usually talk about a lot of things, good and bad. Sometimes a little bit rough, sometimes just makes you kind of, get down and, kind of lose faith in humanity. Well, that's what the good news segment is for. It's basically to perk us up, to restore our faith in humanity a little bit, and to give us something to look forward to, because tomorrow's Thursday, and we're just that close to the weekend off to this short week that we've had for our post 4th of July Independence observation. Excuse me. So now the story I want to show to you again is another teacher that to me is going above and beyond showing kids how to learn using extraordinary things.
I'm born, raised, and everything in Baltimore. Our sound of summer is dirt bikes.
For teacher and engineer Brittany Young, this is music to her ears. Because these kids are also here for an education.
Let me see a bike. Yeah, what you learn?
This is B360, short for Be the Revolution. Brittany founded it in 2017 to teach kids here in Baltimore about STEM science through dirt biking.
So I guess I have to ask the obvious question, what do dirt bikes and STEM have in common?
Yeah, that's a favorite question. I mean, when you think about it, it's everything. The science, like the science behind popping the best wheelie, that's a physics equation. When you think about math with fixing dirt bikes and the best gas to oil ratio, and the engineering, mechanics fix a product every day, so do dirt bike products.
Dirt bike culture runs deep within the African American community.
So as a kid, I was in the park watching riders. I tried, but I don't like to fall.
As a kid, Brittany also loved science and never forgot something a teacher once told her.
I remember being in 2nd grade and my teacher told me I couldn't go into STEM because I'm black, I'm a woman, and my parents didn't go to college.
A teacher told you this?
Yeah, I didn't have my first black teacher until I was in 3rd grade.
Determined to show kids like her that they can succeed in STEM, Brittany combined it with bikes, hosting classroom workshops.
This is your motor, the legs.
And community events.
And if you don't know how to reach your students by identifying with their culture, you can also lose them.
One challenge, dirt bikes seen by some as a danger are illegal on city streets. So this summer, Baltimore's B&O Railroad Museum loaned B360 a vacant lot where kids like 7-year-old Kamari Mullen can ride.
How old were you when you started?
4.
You're a veteran. You've been doing this for a while, huh? 3 whole years, almost half your life. That's incredible. And gentlemen, how are you feeling back there? What makes this program special?
I think it's a good idea to like keep young black men off the streets.
And it's not just kids. Brittany's instructors are also riders building their own sense of community.
How rare is this? I mean, have you ever seen a program like this?
No, never. This is my first time seeing this.
It's tough to get young fellas to get up, in the morning to go to school, but early in the morning they up, ready to come out here and have a good time on a bike.
What do you think people misunderstand about this biking culture?
I feel like they misunderstand like the reason we ride, and it's more so for like peace and freedom. Guns down, bikes up, like that. Like,
What do you mean by that? Guns down, bikes up.
put down your guns. Everybody come out, collab, get together, and ride.
So, what are teachers and parents telling you about this program?
They love it. We can't get rid of their kids.
Sounds like you don't want to either.
Oh. No, I don't. I like that they stay forever and they become lifelong learners. But the way that I speak about our kids is not from, we're helping them or we're saving them. It is we're empowering them to be their own advocates and to grow their own skills.
But to get the full B360 experience, there was really only one thing left to do.
Yes! Okay, give me some speed. Wow.
So fun. So I have to tell you guys, one of my absolute favorite things about this program is that Brittany also has a partnership with the state attorney's office where nonviolent offenders can have their cases dismissed if they come and work with B360. So it's all part of her larger goal to really put everyone, young and old, on the right path and really building a community.
So good. I love that they're learning the mechanics behind it, right? So they're not just riding around.
Amazing, isn't it? I mean, literally a teacher has learned to use a dirt bike to teach kids a lot of stuff. Mechanics, science, mathematics, and actually making a difference. I'm sorry, I know I say this a lot. Educators hold a very special place in my heart. Just because if it wasn't for a teacher that literally showed me the things that I can do and things I can do and can be, I wouldn't know where I would be right now. So yes, I do have a soft spot for educators because it is one of the most greatest professions that is completely undervalued and really should be given a lot more praise than what's getting. So I just thought that part was cool because it reminded every time I see a teacher that goes beyond the norm like that, reminds me of the teachers that I used to have. Even Miss Woodard, 5th grade math teacher, Miss Woodard, who made math so much fun. She didn't give up on me. But math just anyway, that's gonna do it for our podcast, guys. I do thank you all for watching. Before I do get out of here, I do have to do some shameless plugging. I do want to start with my buddy Vaughn, Big VZA Dot. The Vaughn Witherspoon on Facebook, VZA Dot on social, has a few podcasts of his own. The Smoking Trailer Sundays, which is every Sunday from 6:30 to 9 p.m. It's trailers about movies and shows. I call Vaughn the King of the Weird Trailers because sometimes he finds some interesting trailers. Sometimes he finds ones that maybe question our friendship, but I still love the guy. He also has the RAF, which is America's Funniest Home Videos are done by World Star, usually also 6:30 to 9 p.m. Usually on Mondays or Tuesdays. He kind of goes in between depending on what he feels like. But you can definitely catch all of his shows on Facebook at Vaughn Witherspoon, and also Big Busy on social. You can always reach him. Definitely like, share, and subscribe from there. Aside from that, guys, the link at the bottom, you copy and paste that into your browser, will take you to my link tree for all of my podcasts. How the Frack We Got Here, Get Bit, and the Influence Podcast. Slight programming note, guys, for Get Bit this Friday. We will actually be doing it this Sunday, just because of some family things that, unfortunately, I won't say unfortunately, it sounds so terrible if I say unfortunately. Family stuff comes up, and like I said, with all things in life, we just shuffle some things around. So me and Joe will be doing Get Bit this Sunday, Sunday afternoon and evening, probably between 7 o'clock to 8:30. Of course, the regular programming will let's try that again. That was good and terrible. The regular programming, as far as for the weekend edition of How the Frack We Got Here and the Off Limits Podcast, will still occur on Saturday. So definitely go check out for that. Beyond that, guys, last thing I'll sit there and say, well, not the last thing. Also, again, COVID-19 is out. People have been getting the shots. Some people decide not to. All I'm saying, guys, is it's not weird if you still want to wear a mask, because I know in a lot of places I'm telling you that you don't need a mask when you go in. It is completely okay to still wear yours because you are being preventative and being safe, and there's nothing wrong with that. And also, with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. If you like what I did, please let me know. If you didn't like what I did, please let me know. Still want to know either way what you guys think about my thoughts and everything else that was said on this podcast tonight. And also, if you're watching this on the playback, please comment if it's live. I still want to know you guys' opinions on what we talked about. The last thing I'll say about how the Frack got here, guys, is all about staying informed. We are not trying to change minds or persuade people. We are simply just giving the facts and allowing you to make up your mind for yourself. We're basically just informing you, because we do a lot better as a society when we're informed. When we're uninformed, we get idiots like Trump. When we're informed, we can do things and be progressive, like elect our first Madam Vice President who is black. Still hoping for Michelle Obama in 2024. That being said, guys, thank you all for watching. Hopefully you guys have a good, smooth evening as we look forward to Friday Eve, which is Thursday. Take care of each other, and we'll get through this. Peace.